these greetings are not meaningless. The guy behind the power cord was put to the test, tempered and changed by these elemental reckonings, each of which was a tornado of emotion. Grace Slick, the acid-tongued empress of Jefferson Airplane, was the first to throw Townshend off his feet. Her voice came down on him like a thunderclap of molten tempest. He recalls that night's electric hum in the air of San Francisco, with eyes blazing with cosmic mischief and hair as wild as storm clouds. Her form was illuminated by flashing amp lights. Her words cracked like broken glass as she spoke. Every phrase was a flash of lightning that burned through his cloaked reflection. In that cramped studio, their late-night combat turned into an elemental force ceremony. His passionate riffs were met with Grace's cynical laughter, which rolled across the room like thunder and created an explosive counterpoint. She challenged him to temper his rock sermons with razor-sharp wit, and he felt his heart hammer with equal parts astonishment and horror. His songs shuddered under her eyes, changed from chords to battlefields of beauty and defiance. She taught him that intellectual fortitude and nuance are necessary to temper rebellion, that 1,000 power lines cannot penetrate as deeply as one heartbreaking lyric. Her voice was simultaneously a lullaby of revolution and a call to arms as it rose in that darkened sanctuary. Townshend stood electrified and indelibly altered as Grace's last echo vanished into the dark mists. Her thunderous echoes, and the spark of her unquenchable flame, forever etched in his consciousness. Joan Jett, the insurgent in leather whose arrival was like a war cry in the middle of the night, then charged in. Every chord he believed he understood was ignited by her primitive riff, which initially shocked him and sent electricity through his veins. Their first joint effort on a charity single shook the studio like a quake. A new realm of sound was created as her growling guitar lines and his power chords collided in a baptism of raw grit. Her eyes, frigid as ice and savage as a tiger, dare him to strip rock to its bare bones and meet its heartbeat at full throttle. Simon recalls. Every note was devoid of pretense in Joan's world, and every quiet moment was brimming with wild potential. As a tempest trapped within a whisper, a storm sustained by precision, she personified the dichotomy of ferocity and restraint. Observing her performance, Townshend realized that the most devastating declarations originate from controlled rage, and that unadulterated energy might have a greater impact than the most spectacular display. And as it got closer to the end, it became something I had to say I wasn't particularly enjoying. I wouldn't pretend that I had performed in their backstage confessional right before coming over here, because it wasn't a polite conversation. Through Townshend's reticent reflection, Joan's frank wit and battle-hardened resolve cut through the swirl of cigarette smoke and the hum of cooling amps. She challenged him to let his songs to bleed with raw passion, describing a world in which honesty was valuable and compromise was a betrayal. The tectonic plates of his imagination shifted in that explosive moment, waking to a creed that extolled simplicity as the most ferocious kind of disobedience. Then came Patti Smith, the punk prophetess, whose fiery rhymes exploded like raw emotional mortar rounds in Townshend's world. He remembers her voice, a wounded song that pierced his soaring melodies with blades of candor, and the crackling energy in the London air when they shared that fateful stage. Patti let her poetry out in guttural roars and muttered confessions, her eyes burning with the scars of survival in the half-light of stage smoke. Every message she sent felt like an invitation to breach his own barriers and reveal his own realities. Their moments off the stage were just as explosive. Patti's somber look could rob Townshend of his masquerade, and a breath of her laughter might light up his guarded heart behind the velvet curtain. The night they gathered around a flickering amplifier, he recalls. She chanted words of defiance and grief, while her fingers traced invisible scars on the amplifier's chassis. Her words shaped his convictions into sharper edges, like molten metal. She wasn't just telling him a narrative when she talked about grief that had been endured and defiance that had been chosen. She presented him with a mirror that allowed him to see every broken word in his own psyche. Patti's gift was a double-edged blade, a weapon of upheaval created from vulnerability. She taught Townshend that sacrifice is necessary for great art, and that a melody's beauty is found in its ability to reveal the underlying raw wound. And he stood changed, carrying her volcanic echo in every power chord he struck, a testament to the eternal sanctity of unadulterated truth. As Patti's last verse faded into the thunder of the audience, Chrissie Hynde, the Pretender's iron-willed siren, arrived after Patti's harsh incantation. Her stubborn pulse reflected every burned thread in the town's damaged spirit. With the promise of creative upheaval, their fateful rendezvous started beneath Dublin's neon glow. where cobblestones were splattered by rain. With her guitar slung low and her gaze daring, Chrissy came like a tempest-clad muse, asking Pete to abandon his lofty narratives and face the unvarnished truth. By candlelight, their protracted songwriting sessions become like holy rites. Every flicker illuminates confessions too long suppressed, and casts shaky shadows on the walls. His compositions were infused with Chrissy's velvety, iron-edged voice, which enticed the town's leader to reveal a sensitivity he had long kept hidden. She spoke about scars and survival, as if they were medals obtained in the battles of life, then broke the romantic illusions he had weaved into his lyrics with her witty, glass-sharp sarcasm. During those holy hours, verses and chords served as a bridge between two injured sound designers. His harmonic contours provide her with a haven of understanding, while her sharp riffs chisel into the armor of his heart. Chrissy insisted on being genuine. Gilded facades are over. No more refined realities. She encouraged him to wear his flaws like honorable tattoos, to let his words bleed and bruise. As the sun rose and the last remnants of their partnership burned up, Townshend came out naked and crowned. He could feel Chrissy's echoes in every part of him. A constant heartbeat serves as a reminder to him that the greatest strength is found in vulnerability, shared by both parties, and that true communion is created when two unbreakable spirits unite to create a single, unbreakable song. And lastly, Kathleen Hanna, the revolutionary riot girl, whose shout was a call to action against all the injustices he had ever suppressed. Her voice sounded like an earthquake through the dark hallways when he first saw her, in a blur of perspiration and defiance, at a backstage performance. Her savage cry seemed to shake the very roots of his beliefs. In addition to being songs, Hannah's savage screams were battle hymns that tore through his complacency and stitched a scarlet banner of resistance across his chest. Townshend felt his amplifiers go pale next to her tremorous presence in that tremendous moment. With her eyes burning with righteous rage, she leaned in and pushed him to use his guitar as a force for change rather than just for chords. Her remarks were inflammatory, a manifesto that was taken straight out of the riot girl uprising. She talked about overlooked heroes and broken glass ceilings. Her words ignited a fire in his conscience with each syllable. That evening, when exit signs flickered and beer bottles crashed, their talk turned into a confessional conflation. Hannah laughed like a piece of shrapnel. Her rage was a lighthouse that shone in the shadows of his own shyness. She challenged him to make his songs a rallying cry for the oppressed and to elevate the voices muffled by injustice. He saw a mirror reflecting his own silent desires in her bold roar. The desire to utilize his notoriety as a revolutionary megaphone. The sound of Kathleen's leaving echoed in his soul like a long chord when she strode off. Townshend came to see that anarchy and art were inextricably linked, that every song might serve as a lifeline for those suffering, and that every power chord could serve as a call to arms. Every note he played after that night carried her seismic echo, serving as a reminder that rock's greatest legacy is not simply its music, but also the seismic earthquake of a single voice that dares to upend the world. Why these five? What is the reason for bringing them into the light now? Because the life of Pete Townshend has been a symphony of storms, moments of fragile peace, thunderclaps of doubt, and gales of expectation. Furthermore, these women were the elemental energies that led him through each storm. His complacency was initially disturbed by Grace Slick's lightning-fast wit, which taught him that revolt needed to be as incisive as truth itself. He was then reminded that raw strength can be the truest form of expression, as Joan Jett's primordial pulse captured his heart in a clutch of uncontrollable energy. His vast narratives were shattered by Patti Smith's broken beauty, demonstrating that vulnerability is a furnace where art is created. His sanctuary and cooperation were provided by Chrissy Hynde's shared heartbeat, which demonstrated to him that two souls may unite in a strong, unified song. And Kathleen Hanna's thunderous cry echoed in his mind, urging him to use his voice as a weapon and a shield, and to speak up for justice. These five women come together to create a constellation of differences. The outer boundaries of Townshend's own spirit are mapped by fire and ice, steel and silk, echo and explosion. Their echoes gave him the strength to tear down his own walls, reveal the bare chords behind his armor, and weave his story back together with strands of unadulterated truth. Every interaction was a confrontation and a communion, a recognition of his own limitations, and a discovery of fresh opportunities. Pete Townshend now reveals their identities as a monument to the alchemical dance between masculine and feminine energies in rock's vast tapestry, rather than as a mere list of influences. because he honors his own growth by recognizing their voices. From silent architect to screaming witness, from lone dreamer to windmill prophet. And their siren calls will keep spinning his windmills of sound long after the thunder has subsided, delivering their power with every chord, phrase, and breath. Pete Townshend will always remember every single